Excellent. We are hiding controls. We're in present mode. All right, ladies and gentlemen, once again, thank you all so much for being here for this introduction to gene keys. They are, for me, they are completely life-changing, and I really I can't wait to get into it with you guys. So really quick, if you don't know who I am, my name is Maureen Webb. I'm an astrology, human design, and gene keys guide. I can proudly say that I am an author to the world's only human design coloring and workbook. I have an Etsy shop, and I am also a retired Chicago police officer. I retired last year after 16 years. I now live my dream in Sedona with these two ridiculously good-looking dogs in this picture. And hey, if you're in Sedona, I actually do readings at Crystal Magic. So this is my invitation to you. If you're in my neck of the woods, I have air conditioning, and come and stop by and get a reading from me from Crystal Magic. So before we get into gene keys, really quick, we need to know what human design is, because that's where the gene keys come from. Human design combines astrology, the I Ching, the Kabbalah tree of life, and quantum physics to provide a blueprint for your unique potential and purpose. That's all I'm going to talk about in human design. I just wanted to throw that out there for you. So then, wait a minute, what about gene keys? The gene keys were actually brought to us by Richard Rudd, and he was a longtime student of Ra-Uru, who actually was the transmitter for human design. So that's how they are connected. So now, what are the gene keys? In very, very simple terms, gene keys are a modern spiritual teaching that seeks to unlock the potential of our DNA. They offer us a new way of understanding ourselves and our purpose. So if you guys are ready to get into it, this is where it all starts. So what is a gene key? Well, every gene key, when we dissect it, has 4 parts. There is a shadow, a gift, and a city. There is also what is called a line keynote. Now, while the core meaning of the gene key remains the same, it is expressed differently depending on its place in your hologenetic profile. So this is my hologenetic profile. Now that you know my birthday, you are not obligated to buy me a gift, April 18th. Thank you so much. So really quickly, we're actually going to go over this entire thing, which, like I said, it's a lot, but it's so good. So just in case you had never been familiar, I just wanted to kind of show you. The green spheres are what is known as your activation sequence. Then we come up to the red spheres, which are your Venous sequence. And then we have this beautiful little triangle right here, and that is known as your pearl sequence. And we're going over all of it. So again, activation, Venus, pearl sequence. It's absolutely beautiful, and they flow wonderfully. So the first thing we are going to talk about is our activation sequence. This is also known as the genius sequence. And if you are familiar with human design, this is the story of your incarnation cross in human design. The main objective is to answer the question, what is my purpose? Now, the 4 gene keys of the activation sequence represent what are known as your 4 prime gifts. These are cornerstones of your life, representing the mythic themes and challenges of your lifetime. So let's break them down. The first gene key that we are going to talk about is called your life's work. Now, in parentheses, you'll see 2 letters after every gene key. This is what placement it is in your human design. CS stands for conscious sun. This sphere is around 70% of your energetic makeup. It represents what you are here to do in the world and the energy you bring to everything you do in your life, career, and daily role. One thing I did not write down that I'm actually going to speak to you guys are what the shadow, gift, and city mean for each of the spheres. I've also written down what the line numbers mean. For some of them, not all of them, because some are actually very, very complicated. But we're going to get a taste here, right? So when we look at our life's work, when we look at the shadow, that word is the inner work that you are here to do. It is a challenge that you will meet over and over again in your life until you have fully accepted it. When we get through the shadow and we get to the gift of your life's work is the outer work that you are here to do. It is where your deep purpose meets the outside world. Then when we get to the city, that is the divine essence of what your work will be in the world. Now we take all of that and then we look at the line. Now the line is, don't forget, if you have your hologenetic profile, that line number is the number after the dot. So for example, my life's work is 3.2. So my line is the dancer. If you're a line 1, you're a creator, and you are here to change the way people breathe. If you're a line 2, like me, you're here to change the way people move. Line 3 is the changer. You are here to change the way people feel about themselves. Line 4 is the server. You are here to change the way people feel about others. Line 5 is the fixer. You are here to change the way people behave. And line 6 is the teacher. You are here to change the way people think. So next, after that, we have the evolution sphere. And this is your conscious earth. This sphere represents the greatest challenge you will overcome in your life. When we look at the shadow, it's the thing that shakes you awake to the whole activation sequence. And once you can allow, accept, and embrace it, the gift and the city follow. The gift becomes the grounding force in your life and inspires you to grow. And the city is the quality of your expression as a fully realized and enlightened human. It is a fuel for the essence of what you are here to do in your lifetime. The lines of your evolution sphere are what are known as circuit breakers. They show you where you will most likely find this challenge, pressure, and what the gift of freeing yourself will yield. For line 1, it is self and empowerment. Your gift is sourced from within. Your shadow is self-esteem. Your circuit breaker is to break out of self-centered philosophy through the service to others. Line 2 is passion and relationships. The gift of this line is unself-consciousness, and the shadow is projection. Your circuit breaker is to break out of disappointment through finding fulfillment inside of yourself. For line 3, your gift is enrichment, and your shadow is avoidance. Your circuit breaker is asking you to break out of the need for attention or approval by doing things without an agenda. For line 4, your gift is harmony, and your shadow is comparison. The circuit breaker for you is asking you to break out of anxiety by admitting that your issues are tiny. We want you to give into your big love. And then we have line 5. Your gift is amplification, and your shadow is pressure. The circuit breaker for you is asking you to break out of misunderstandings by using vulnerability as a strength. And finally, we have line 6. Your gift is aspiration, and the shadow is seeking resolution. Your circuit breaker is asking you to break out of compromise by believing in the big dream. And that dream is that we can all evolve. So the next sphere is called your Radiance sphere. And this sphere is your unconscious sun. This is about physical, mental, and emotional health. In the Gene Keys, we call this a hidden gift. And it either undermines your well-being or it brings you great vitality. When we look at the shadow, it undermines those things. The shadow occurs when you find yourself out of sync with nature and rhythm and disconnected from your truth. When we look at the gift of your radiance, this is where you settle into your body and in your life, and what brings you internal and external harmony and health. And your city is your highest mystical potential. It is your inner light, your true genius, and one of your divine gifts. Now, when we look at the line of your radiance answers the question, how do I process life so that I can be my best? If you're a line 1, it's about solitude. It's time alone invested in your interests. For line 2, it's marriage. It's learning through biofeedback from another. Line 3 is interaction, and it's evolving through change and diversity. Line 4 is friendship, and it's thriving around those you love and trust. Line 5 is impact, speaking your inner wisdom to guide people. And last but certainly not least, line 6 is nurture. It's developing your dreams over time. Now, next, we have the final sphere of the activation sequence, and that is your purpose sphere. And that is your unconscious earth. Your purpose sphere, when in the activation sequence, is what is here that deeply fulfills you. It's not about what you're here to do, because that's what is in our life's work. Our purpose sphere is how we be. It's the spirit in which we live, and it's basically how we do everything. It is the quality of genius, consciousness that we are here to express. When we look at the shadow of the purpose, The shadow of your purpose is what undermines your core stability and pulls you out of alignment, and oftentimes makes you feel out of place in your own body. When we look at the gift, this is what grounds you it grounds you into who you are at your core. Now, the city of your purpose sphere is the divine gift you are here to physically bring into the collective. Now, the lines of the sphere represent the higher purpose of your being expressed through your body. And you'll notice when I was explaining the shadow gift in city, it was all talking about body. It is grounding. It is what you're here to do. It's that physicality. Line 1 is exactly that. It is physicality. It is, when we're looking at the body, it is bones. Line 2 is about posture or fluids. Line 3 is all about movements. And in the body, that would be blood. Line 4 is breath. In the body, that is rhythm. And line 5 is voice, which is frequency. And line 6 is intent. Or if we're talking about your body, it is the cells of your body. All right. So I'm going to take a quick drink of water, and then we are going to get this party started with the Venous sequence. Now, we ended the activation sequence with the purpose sphere, and we're going to begin the 6 gene keys of the Venous sequence with the purpose sphere. But before we do that, I want to talk about what exactly is the Venous sequence. Well, as Richard Rudd says, it is the path of courageous emotional opening through your relationships. When we contemplate this sequence, it cracks open and softens the defenses of our hearts so that we become more connected with other people. This Venous sequence forms the heart of the golden path. And I always forget to mention this, but the golden path is literally all 3 of the sequences of gene keys. Again, when we contemplate this sequence, understand that it is a journey into the genetic currents that shaped you in the womb and karmic forces released at the moment of conception. So this is a very deep and, for lack of a better word, heavy sequence at the beginning, because we're going all the way back into the moment of conception. I will try as best that I can, and I think I do a fairly good job of explaining what each one of the keys are. But again, if you have questions about this, I will try to answer as many as I can after we're done. So let's get this party started. The purpose, again, is your unconscious earth. This sphere not only, again, like I said, completes the activation, but begins your Venous sequence. When we look at the shadow of the purpose sphere as it relates to relationships, this shadow is the unique difficulty that you have in relationships. It's what pulls you into drama, and it also gives you a very unsettled feeling. When we rise into the gift of this purpose sphere, it is when you no longer react to the drama of your shadow, and instead you surrender and recommit to your dharma. When we get to the city of this purpose sphere, this is the embodiment of your Dharma at a physical level. And this is where you refine and anchor higher frequencies into your DNA. When we look at the 6 lines of your purpose, they have what is called a low frequency keynote and a high frequency keynote. When we look at the purpose sphere in relationships, we also have the addition of a repressive and reactive tendency. These are behavioral mirrors for you to consider as you look at your own relationship keynotes. Now, line 1 is the loner or the anchor. When you are standing in the shadow, you're in the loner. That's who that is. Now, the repressive side of the loner is not standing up for yourself. And the reactive side of the loner is forcing your point of view. When we look at the anchor, that is the high frequency of that keynote. Your inner strength is standing up for yourself in a firm but kind way. And your outer strength is listening to the needs of the other. When we look at line 2, the low frequency of the accuser, the repressive nature of that is burying your head in the sand. And the reactive tendency is to respond with angry outbursts. When we look at the gift, the high frequency keynote of the natural, your inner strength is responding to life spontaneously. Your outer strength is being at peace with others. When we look at the line 3, the low frequency keynote, that's what's called the escape artist. The repressive tendency here is to divert attention away from yourself. The reactive tendency is to create emotional drama. Now, the high frequency of line 3 is the adventurer. Your inner strength is your ability to laugh at yourself, and your outer strength is accepting the feelings of others. And now we go on to line 4. The low frequency keynote for that is called the politician. The repressive tendency is to be emotionally numb, and the reactive tendency is to cut others off in a cruel way. The high frequency keynote for line 4 is the nurturer. And the nurturer's inner strength is being gentle with yourself, and your outer strength is connecting deeply with other people. Then we move on to line 5. The low frequency keynote is known as the victim. The repressive tendency of the victim is being lost in self-pity, and the reactive tendency is making others feel like the victim. Then we go to the high frequency keynote, and that is the leader. The leader's inner strength is seeing things clearly for yourself, and the outer strength is using your clarity to help other people. And in line 6, the low frequency keynote is known as the judge. The repressive tendency is being uninterested and aloof, while the reactive tendency is intellectually disempowering other people. Then we have the high frequency keynote of the visionary. The visionary's inner strength is including yourself at every level of life. And your outer strength is being a role model for others. So next, we go into the attraction sphere. And this is your unconscious moon. This sphere represents our attractor field. It's the magical and mysterious magnetic force that works through our lives, allowing us to draw people and relationships towards us according to our dharma. It's our path and our karma for our transformation. Now, this sphere covers a lot of inner ground, being about sexuality, creativity, magnetism, and fortune. When we look at the shadow side of the attraction sphere, this is the hidden motivations and subtleties within your desires. When we look at the gift of your attraction sphere, this is where the innocence and vulnerability within your desires live. And finally, at the city level, this is a profound spiritual and sexual transformation and how you personally refine your frequency. Now, because the moon is about desire and sexuality, when we look at the 6 lines of the attraction sphere, we want to contemplate them in your life and the states of agony or ecstasy that go with these things. Now, for line 1, you go from sterility to fertility in the states of agony and ecstasy can be empty or wholesome. With line 2, this is lust and passion, and agony and ecstasy is inadequate or liberated. For my line 3s, promiscuity and playfulness. The agony ecstasy is melodramatic or adventurous. When we look at line 4, it's frigidity and romance. And the states of agony or ecstasy come in the forms of being distant or intimate. Line 5 is entrapment and sensuality, with states of being manipulative or masterful. And finally, we have line 6, which is disappointment and innocence, with themes of feeling resigned or ecstatic. Now, another thing I want to mention about the attraction sphere is a quote that I found from Richard Rudd that I just really, really love. And he says, everything you attract toward yourself, all relationships, experiences, and their timings serve a single purpose: to offer you the possibility of expanding your capacity to love. So I just wanted to drop that in because I think it's really quite beautiful. So we are going on to our next sphere, and that is the IQ, and that is your conscious Venus. This sphere relates to the 3rd 7-year cycle of your life. This is ages 14 to 21. This sphere speaks to the ways that influence you in respect to using your mind to control your emotions and override your intuition. It also looks at patterns that formed when you were young in response to deep emotional conditioning. When we break the IQ down, in the shadow, This is the pattern of thinking that you use to try to control your emotions and protect yourself from pain using your mind. When we look at the gift, this is the highest expression of your mental intelligence, and it unlocks mental maturity, optimism, and grace. And finally, at the Siddhic level, this is the key to the quantum field through your awareness. So now we're going to look at the lines. And each of these lines represent a different kind of psychological bias. These are generalized modes or styles of thinking that underpin your behavior. And each line has a shadow keynote that I've put in parentheses. So in line 1, you have the contemplative mind. Line 1 has the shadow keynote of being and feeling hidden. The question line 1 asks is, how do I hide inside this shadow? For line 2, it's known as the brilliant mind, and the shadow keynote is being provocative. The question for line 2 is, how do I provoke others with this shadow? Line 3 is the flexible mind, and the shadow keynote is evasive. The question is, how do I avoid my true feelings inside of this shadow? Line 4 is the influential mind, and the shadow keynote is inflexible. The question to ask is, how do I get stuck inside of this shadow? Line 5 is the practical mind with a defensive shadow keynote. The question is, how do I use this shadow as a weapon to defend myself? And finally, line 6 is the objective mind. The shadow keynote for this line is being absent. The question this asks is, how do I isolate through this shadow? I'll give you a couple seconds. I'm going to take some water. All right. So the next sphere is known as the EQ. And I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you that IQ stands for intelligence quotient. The EQ is the emotional quotient, and that is your conscious Mars placement. This sphere relates to the second 7-year cycle of your life, you at the ages of 7 through 14. And it speaks to your emotional development and your primary defense mechanism. This sphere also talks to the release of your inner child and your ability to reignite joy and playfulness in your life. At the shadow level, the EQ, the shadow represents what constantly undermines your core stability. And I'm going to break right here and let you guys know that my shadow is impatience, and I find that to be absolutely hilarious. The gift is the embodiment of emotional intelligence through awareness. And the city is the key to emotional transcendence. So when we talk about the lines of your EQ, they're a view into your basic ideology. And this refers to a core emotional attitude that you evolve primarily through your second 7-year cycle, like when you were ages 7 to 14. Now, line 1 is self-esteem with the shadow of self-sabotage. Line 2 is courtesy with the shadow of aggression. Line 3 is sympathy with the shadow of apathy. Line 4 is kindness with the shadow of meanness. Line 5 is respect with the shadow of disrespect. And line 6 is reverence with the shadow of alienation. Take a deep breath. We got a couple more. So the next gene key in the Venous sequence is known as the SQ. That is your spiritual quotient. This gene key is known as your love point and relates to your first 7-year cycle, which is the ages of 0 to 7. It speaks to the primary psychological rhythms and structural patterns of your identity. It also seeks to open your heart fully and deeply to allow greater self-esteem and awareness in relationships. Your SQ is the journey of reconnecting back to the purest flame of unconditional love that we were all born with. When we talk about the SQ, when we talk about the shadow, we want to think of the shadow as seeing it as sadness. When we look at the gift, this is joy for us. And then when we look at the acidic level, it is the ecstasy that you feel when you merge sadness and joy together. The 6 lines of the SQ look at the qualities of consciousness that the developing child, that's you, needs and still needs to this day. These qualities never change throughout our lives. When we look at line 1, we think of certainty. Line 1 needs rhythm and routine. What makes you feel safe? That is the question I pose to line 1s. When we look at line 2, the keyword is freedom. It is wildness and boundaries. The question for you is what makes you feel free? For line 3, we have pleasure, adventure, and understanding. For line 3, what makes you feel joy? For line 4, it is belonging, kinship, and community. The question for you is what makes you feel like you belong? Line 5, the keyword is mentoring, role models with integrity. For you, the question is, who is an inspiring role model? And then we have line 6 with a keyword of patience, time and space. The question for you is what makes you feel depth? Now, a neat thing about these lines is they also have a shadow and a gift. And it's actually really quite beautiful when you dig a little bit deeper, which I'm hoping some of you will. So it's very cool. So we are going to our final sphere for the Venous sequence, and it is called the core wound. I will let you know that if you have pulled your hologenetic profile, you may see that this sphere says vocation. It's actually vocation in the Pearl sequence. This is one of the spheres that do double duty. So when we're thinking of this, when we're thinking of the core wound, it is our unconscious Mars, and that's for the Venous sequence. This sphere relates to the gestation period in your mother's womb, where all of your life patterns are imprinted on you. Once you unlock your core wound, it is the greatest gift that you can give to the world. This drives your evolution and connects you to all human beings. And just like the purpose sphere, again, it's a blended sphere, and it also begins the final sequence of the gene keys. When we look at the shadow of our core wound, this is what holds you back from your fullest potential. When we look at the gift, this is the greatest creative impulse, potential, and genius you have. And finally, when we look at the city, that is the essence of your being. When we go a little bit deeper, we talk about the lines. The 6 lines of the core wound represent an archetypal aspect of the human wound. For line 1, it is repression, and the way forward is honesty. Line 2 is denial, with the way forward being ease. Line 3 is shame, with the way to move forward being humor. Line 4 is rejection. The way to move forward is gentleness. Line 5 is guilt, with the way of moving forward being forgiveness. And line 6 is separation, with the way moving forward for you is care. So the final sequence of the golden path is known as the Pearl sequence. Now, the Pearl sequence guides us to true prosperity through the stages of heartfelt exchange with the universe. It supports us in finding the highest possible form of service through our natural gifts. The gene keys of the Pearl sequence, which also is known as the prosperity sequence, describe a process that brings us into contact with people, cultures, places, and dimensions that are required to fulfill our highest destiny. Dun, dun, dun. All right. I hope you guys are still with me. So we just talked about the core wound. We talked about that sphere. Now that we are in the Pearl sequence, this is known as our vocation. So this sphere is your greatest pain that gives birth to the greatest way that you can bring your gifts to the world. When we look at the shadow of the vocation sphere, this is the core wound that you are here to master. The gift is your greatest zone of genius and the core essence of the work that you're here to do and the gift that you can give others. And the city is the afterglow that occurs after you've spent time working in your vocation. Now, the 6 lines of your vocation sphere answer the question, how can you be the greatest service to the whole? Now, line 1, the word is production. You're also known as the script writer. So in the parentheses, it's kind of like if life is a movie, kind of, sort of, that's what it reminds me of. So as a line 1, you are a channel for inspired creativity and you create foundations. When you have a line 2 in your vocation, that word is marketing. It's also known as the agent. You are here to refine the expression of your vocation. Line 3 is strategy, also known as the producer. You are all about implementation, field testing, and efficiency. And you are all about adapting that strategy. For line 4, sales is the word, director is in parentheses. You are here for interpersonal networking and to influence from your heart. Line 5, your management, also known as the promoter. You are here to oversee the whole project and to work out how best to deliver it to the world. You guide others towards the vision. Line 6 is philanthropy, also known as the investor. You have vision. It is sustainability and integration, and you are here to nurture the higher vision. That's pretty cool. I like that. I am not a line 6, but I still think it's really cool. So next, we go to the culture sphere, and that is your unconscious Jupiter. When we talk about the culture sphere, this shows you how you best fit into the collective and how you operate in the world. This sphere tells you how to bring powerful allies into your life that assist you with your life's purpose. Now, the bonus is, if you take a look at the word that is your shadow, this is what is directly blocking you from manifesting prosperity. And in case anybody's looking at that right now, I'm going to make you feel better, because my shadow is arrogance. I was like, really? Thanks. Thanks so much. So don't feel bad. So when we look at the shadow, again, it's what directly blocks you from manifesting prosperity. Now, the gift of your culture is a yin force that draws you to the right people at the right time. The city is the flowering of simplicity, philanthropy, and inner prosperity. So now we look at the lines. The lines of your culture answer the question, what is your role in the orchestra of your fractal line? Now, your fractal line can also be, people call it your fractal family. It's who you are here to work with in this lifetime. When we look at these lines, I want to give you guys the shadow and the gift of each one of these lines, as well as talking about how to build through that line. So the first line is the line of the individual, and your role is built from self-nourishment. The shadow of line 1 is being self-absorbed, and the gift is being self-motivated. When we look at line 2 is partnership. You build that from intimacy. Now, the shadow is compromise, and the gift is being complementary. When we look at line 3, that is, the word is unit, and it is built from play. The shadow of this line is chaos, chaos and complexity, and the gift is being flexible and fun. For line number 4, the keyword is network, and that is built from connection. Your shadow is stubborn isolation, and your gift is influential connections. Line 5 is society, and that is built from generosity. The shadow of line 5 is a corrupt empire, and the gift is harmonious organism. When we look at line 6, the word is system, the keyword is system, and that is built from trust. The shadow is alienating indifference, and the gift is embodied wisdom. Now, next is, my dears, another blended sphere. If you remember when we started talking about the activation sequence, this sphere was your life's work. In the Pearl sequence, this is what is known as your brand. We look at this sphere in the Pearl sequence through the lens of how to show up in your fullest light and authenticity to create prosperity in your life. The sphere of your brand also sheds light on some truths about business. Number 1, we are the product that we are trying to sell. Number 2, who we are is our own version of the truth. Those are the 2 questions. What we are really selling is our own version of the truth. And the brand sphere is the trick to making others feel safe about who we are and what we are doing. So we are able to pass down the transmissions of truth that we have to others in our fractal line or fractal family. When we look at the shadow of our brand, this is how you hide your power from yourself. When we look at the gift, this is the key to the liberation of being yourself. When we look at the city, this is your innermost essence and truth. Now we look at the lines. The 6 lines of your brand convey both a quality and a method, which I have put in parentheses. The quality is what you are here to express through the gene key inside of your brand sphere. So we want to merge both the gene key and its line in your mind and heart. Now, line 1 is all about being bold. It is about security. It is also about empowerment. The question here is, what are you creating? And I want you to know that you can use being bold to create what you want in this world. So that's the answer. What are you creating? Boldness. So line 2 is passion. It is image, right? We want, as a line 2, you want your images to be mesmerizing. We want to ask the question, how does it feel? Passion is the expression of flow that catches our attention and the attention of others through the images that we bring out into the world. Line 3 is humor through pleasure. And when do you do that? It is when you are sparked, when something gives you that zhuzh in your heart and your mind and your soul. Humor and pleasure answer the question, when is this happening? Humor and pleasure are all about timing. So be mindful of that. You want to catch the attention of others by making them laugh. With line 4, we have heart. And we use our feelings and we open up through our heart. The question is, who does this benefit? The depth of meaning through authentic soul connections catches the attention of the other when you speak from your heart and through your feelings. Line 5 is wisdom. It is offering solutions. How do you do that? By guiding people. The question is, where is this most needed? Balance listening with practical action. You want to catch the attention of others by offering practical solutions to their problems. For line 6, it's all about vision and education. Why? Because we are, as a line 6, you are re-visioning. The question for you with this line is, why are we here? The capacity to completely change somebody's world view. That is why you're here. No pressure, but it's pretty awesome. You want to catch the attention of others by not only educating them, but igniting their own wisdom, the wisdom inside of them. So I know you can't believe it, but we're already at the last sphere. What? The final sphere is your pearl. This is your conscious Jupiter. This sphere represents the harvest of all of your efforts. It brings your rewards and grace once you let go of the shadow. And it also gives you clarity. The harvest is the place of surrender when we become one with the universe. When we look at the shadow of the pearl, this is the force that overcomplicates everything and makes you forget what is important. The gift is the sigh of simplicity that brings you back to center. And the city of your pearl is known as the ultimate silence and frequency of completion. Now, when we look at the lines of the pearl, they bring an end to the narrative of the lines and the spheres of the entire golden path. These lines describe your version of prosperity. And they also describe your most natural relationship to money and the true role of money in your life. These lines can release a miracle or a series of miracles into your life as a response to your devoted service to the whole. And I want to say it again. These lines can release a miracle or a series of miracles as a response to your devoted service to the whole, not the self, the whole. When we look at line one is all about simplicity. Prosperity for you is learning to live simply so that you can see clearly and find out what is really essential. For line two, your word is recognition. And for you, prosperity is about finding the people in your life who recognize you and who you recognize at a soul level. For line three, your word is celebration. Prosperity for you is about celebrating life with others. Line four, your keyword is charity. And prosperity for you is about helping and touching the lives and hearts of the other people in your life. Line five, your keyword is power. And prosperity for you is about bringing practical and positive change into this world. Line six, your keyword is nature. Prosperity for you is a vision of sustainability, fairness, and balance. Now, I know that was a lot, and I kind of went through it pretty quickly. I want to thank you so much for joining me for this workshop. I hope that this knowledge empowers you to live your most authentic life. Where you can find me on the interwebs. I used to be really bad at actually promoting myself. In full disclosure, when I was starting out doing these these workshops, and then I realized I should probably do that, so I save it to the end. If you're interested, I am on Instagram at I am Maureen Webb. If you want to look at my fancy pants website, it is maureen-web.com. If you're curious what I do on Etsy, my store is called Astromancy Creations. If you'd like to purchase one of my super neat books, my coloring books, not gonna lie, you can type in my name on Amazon and you will find the 4 coloring books that I have created. I have one for human design, 2 for astrology, and one I call for the love of mushies. So it's mushrooms and it's fun and I love it. Let me see, I think, oh yeah. So let me really quickly, I'm gonna stop the recording for just a second. Hopefully, who knows? Let's see. Okay.